So the Baltimore Ravens will get their chance at redemption, but will they be able to do it? Well, let's get into it. This video, I'm going to preview the Ravens offense going up against the Titans defense. I plan on making a video talking about the Titans offense against the Ravens defense later in the week, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, I'm just going to split these up because there's a lot to talk about, and I want to, be thorough as I can, while at the same time not making an hour-long video for each game. So Tennessee has beaten Baltimore twice now in the past calendar year. Let's talk about how they're able to do it. And first, let's talk about what they're able to do, on defense to stop Lamar Jackson and a running attack. So we'll start off with this play. There's a bit to unpack right here, but what's happening is that this is going to be a run to the left, a run to Lamar Jackson's left, and you notice I have circled Tennessee defensive back. He is the player who is unblocked on this one, and typically the way that Baltimore is able to get an extra blocker is using Lamar Jackson. I mean, it's worth mentioning that Baltimore actually has another blocker on this play that isn't getting used really, I think, properly. He's going to try to help clear out the area that will allow a running lane for Dobbins. I think he should just run out and lead block, but that's what they're doing right here, and it works out usually for Baltimore because Lamar Jackson can run and pretend that he's going to run to his left, and that can sort of force that defensive back to be not sure where he should go. Should he try to make sure that he can tackle Dobbins, or should he try and make sure that he can tackle Lamar, or does he kind of wait and just wait for one of the options to happen? But if he waits, that's basically going to give up like a 7-yard gain. So what do? Well, you essentially just guess. I mean, you can't know for sure what's going to happen, but you can try and watch as much tape, figure out as many cues as possible, and then be able to make a decision. That can absolutely happen. But sometimes you're going to get it wrong, and you got to be okay with that. But make your decision quickly. If you're wrong, you trust that your defensive backs behind you can make a tackle, and it won't be anything major. It might be a 8-yard gain. It might be a first down. But it's not going to be a 30-yard gain as long as they can make their tackles, which they do a good job of. Lamar is going to hand this ball off to Dobbins, and Amani Hooker just immediately ran in and made just an immediate tackle right there. An incredible play by him, it really was. And so how did he do that? Is he just a magician who happened to know what the play was pre-snap? Well, I mean, it's totally possible they saw something before the snap and he knew that that was what was going to happen. But I also think that they did a couple times get these wrong, and they're okay with that because they trust that they can make a tackle behind them. And also, just getting a quick tackle in the running game completely changes this Ravens offense. This sequence is a great example. So the Ravens got the ball first in overtime, and they would run this play. So again, a bit to unpack here. This is going to be a stretch play to Lamar Jackson's right, which means that their left guard and left tackle are both going to run out and lead block for Dobbins, who's going to run in that direction. And what also is a key factor here is Lamar is going to run to his left, which now means that the edge rusher is going to stay out there to make sure he's potentially able to tackle Lamar if he does, in fact, run with the football. Once again, this is Amani Hooker, who is going to be the key guy on this play. He's the one that I want you to take a look at. So watch, Dobbins takes the ball. He's going to run to the right side. And at this point, it's a very interesting situation, right? Because Dobbins could run just straight forward and pick up yards that way, but he could also run towards the right and keep going in that direction. So there are two options. It looks like Dobbins probably should just run up the middle, but you don't know that. So Hooker has a decision to make. Does he run to the left or to the right of Orlando Brown Jr., who is the great tackle for Baltimore? He's the guy in that area. And this is how Tennessee attacks Baltimore, is they say, I think you're going to run up the middle, so I'm just going to make that decision. And if it doesn't work out, congratulations, you'll probably get a first down. I do have help behind me. That won't make it a huge deal. He crashes in, he gets the quick tackle on Dobbins, and they're only able to gain 2 yards. So not a disaster by any means, but you're making a play quickly, and more importantly, you're going to now force them to throw the football, which isn't Baltimore's strength. Although they're not terrible at it, it's definitely not their strength. Because then they do this play, where what's going to happen is that it's going to be essentially a cover zero robber, where there is a safety playing coverage, but he's going to cover over the middle. So anything over the top could potentially work here for Baltimore, which in overtime is an incredibly risky decision to make, but they're okay with making a decision that risky because they trust that their defense playing man coverage can do at least a decent job at stopping this Baltimore offense, and they're going to be blitzing here, but they're blitzing in a way where they're going to try to make sure to contain Lamar Jackson. If you're going to blitz, you have to be able to contain Lamar, but they're going to do a pretty good job at doing that. Lamar takes a snap, and one key thing to watch is going to be Baltimore's left guard, 77. Watch how he pulls here, and what they're doing is they're trying to sell a play action, but Tennessee says 2nd down and 8, you're probably throwing the ball. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to blitz here. We're going to blitz to try and stop a passing play. If it is a rush, you're probably not getting the first down. We'll take our chances on a 3rd down. Tennessee's whole mindset is get off the field. Play aggressive and get off the field. That's what they're trying to do on defense because their defense isn't that good. And Baltimore's offense is very good, but Tennessee's offense is also very good. So if they can just steal some possessions here, that's how they can win football games. Lamar has no time to make a throw. He is going to go down because he has nowhere to go. The ball comes out at the end, but he was down. And just like that, it's now a 3rd down and long. They had to punt. Lamar Jackson never got the ball back. That's the difference that one good stop in the rushing game can do for you. You get that one stop, it just makes things more difficult for Baltimore. It's not impossible for them, it makes things more difficult. One issue with trying to stop Lamar Jackson in the running game will be shown on a play like this. I still feel like the Ravens are at their best when Lamar Jackson is rushing with the football, and this is a good example where it's going to be a rush to Lamar's right. He's going to fake the handoff up the middle this time, and he's going to keep it. And I've circled a Tennessee edge rusher. He's the guy who's unblocked. So remember in that last play where I talked about how Lamar Jackson is going to fake as though he's running in a direction, and that causes the edge rusher to follow him? Well, the reason why you have to follow Lamar in that situation is because if you don't, this play can happen. As you see, Jackson fakes the handoff, and notice how close towards the middle of the field he is. He got very far in because he's expecting a potential handoff, but you just can't do that against Lamar Jackson. He's too fast, and he will be able to beat you to the edge. And I know I said you have to play aggressive and take chances, but this isn't the chance that you should take. Really, what should happen is that someone else should be trying to take a chance and make a move, whereas the edge rusher, you have to follow Lamar. Jackson got an inch, and he took a mile, is able to run for a good gain. It's nothing crazy. I believe that was a 7-yard gain, so that's good, but it isn't anything just amazing. Which also kind of goes to my point, is that really Baltimore was not able to get explosives through the ground against Tennessee. I decided to plot every single rush because I was interested in seeing if there was any significant impact between when they pulled guards and when they didn't. In my head, when I was watching tape, it seemed like they had more success pulling, and there was a little bit more success when they pulled a guard, which would, be some sort of counter or stretch or several other plays. There wasn't too much of that. When they pulled a guard, they had at least one guard or one offensive lineman in general. They averaged 4.67 yards per carry. When they didn't, it was 3.92 yards per carry. So somewhat of a difference, but nothing massive. But a really interesting thing was just how many good run stops they had. And on top of that, they had good run stops without giving up explosives. They only gave up 2 plays that had double-digit yardage gained and no plays that were explosives. And an explosive is defined as a 15-plus yard play. And on the 25 rushes that I included in this, 11 of them went for 2 yards or less, which is just crazy against this Ravens run offense. And there's several factors for it, but I think that's pretty significant, and that is a way they were able to have some success. They forced Baltimore to throw the ball. And I think a lot of people might be wondering, how in the world is that a good thing to force Baltimore to throw the ball against the Tennessee Titans secondary? Their defense, especially their pass defense, has been abysmal. But honestly, Baltimore had their worst day throwing the ball against this Tennessee defense. I mean, there were guys open, and they just completely screwed things up. And it wasn't just Lamar Jackson. It was a lot of factors going wrong. Like, take a look at this one, where it's going to be zone coverage. And that's kind of the great thing about the Ravens offense is, hey, you're going to do what you can to stop the run. Fine, we'll throw the ball. And for the most part, that works. It did not work against this Titans defense too much. I mean, I should be clear. I'm acting like the Titans defense was incredible. They really weren't that incredible in this game. They actually gave up a decent amount of points. If you look at points per drive, the Baltimore Ravens only had 9 drives. So they actually scored more points per drive than they typically do in a game, which, again, kind of sounded weird because this was a game when everyone acted like Lamar Jackson sucked. Not necessarily the case statistically. But yeah, the way this play works is that it's zone coverage, and Hollywood Brown's going to run over the middle. There should be a spot in between two linebackers where he'll get open and in front of the safety, so there should be a window for Jackson to make this throw. Lamar takes the snap. There's kind of a weird play action. Looks like a miscommunication to some degree, but you notice that Brown is open. There is a linebacker who's kind of in front of him, but Lamar Jackson knows he can just throw it, make Brown run a little bit closer to the logo. He'll get open. This is a play that they should make 10 out of 10 times, quite frankly. Jackson's throw is perfect, but Brown dropped the ball. And there was a lot of plays like that in this game. Plays that should have worked. Sometimes they were easy plays, sometimes they were difficult plays, but plays that should have worked and just didn't, and that happened a ton. This one's a good example. It's a tough play, but it's one that you hope to make, where it's going to be zone coverage that Tennessee is in. It's going to be kind of like a play action for the Ravens, where Lamar Jackson's going to roll out to his right, and that's one of the benefits of having a quarterback who runs the ball, is him just rolling out feels like a play action the whole time, whereas if it's someone who rolls out but doesn't run the ball, say like a Jared Goff, for example, when he starts rolling out, you pretty much know it could be a passing play just with a running option, whereas it almost seems like with Baltimore, these are rushing plays that might have a passing option. Also on this one, Mark Andrews is the key guy to watch. He's going to try and get past the safety who is deep in that area. That's what's going to be the attempt here for Baltimore. So Jackson takes a snap, he rolls out to his right, and you notice that Andrews is open right here. He is past the defense. This is a good situation. Jackson has to throw it on the run, so that's not ideal necessarily. I'm not even sure if he totally had to throw it on the run. He is going to, though. It looked like he could have gotten his feet a bit more square, maybe. But you want to get this ball a little bit quicker, and you want to get this ball further deep than Jackson is going to. Watch, it kind of just hangs up there, and this allowed a safety to come back and make the play. And that's a play that's open and should have worked and should have been a touchdown, and it wasn't. Good defensive play at the end for sure, but he got out of position. And that's kind of the thing about these Tennessee players, is I feel like they don't actually do a terrible job at making plays. They more so just do a terrible job at staying in position, and that's what you have to take advantage of. And while Baltimore got them out of position, they weren't able to capitalize. I thought this one was an interesting one, of Baltimore leaving yards and potentially points on the table. And that's what I thought they did a good amount in this game, which is partially why I think Baltimore will do better offensively than they did the first time these two teams played, because this is going to be quarters coverage that Tennessee is in. And, you know, they have a route concept that can work against quarters. Marquise Brown is running deep. That's the route that you want to throw to here. It's one that can work. It's a concept that is good against quarters coverage, so I totally get it. But there's also a curl route a little bit to Brown's left, which you wouldn't expect to work on paper. So I kind of understand why Lamar Jackson isn't going to look there. But at the same time, it's definitely something that he probably should have taken a glance at. Watch, Jackson takes a snap, runs play action, but because of the play action, linebackers got so out of position. So you look deep, and there definitely is a window where Jackson can make this throw. It's not a horrible decision to make it. It's a tough one. It would definitely be a tough play to happen, but there's a chance it could work. However, he's passing up on completely free real estate, probably a free 15-yard gain and a definite first down. So I think that clearly should have been the option had he seen it. He just didn't see it. So I'm not going to crush him for it or anything. But this is just kind of my point, is that Tennessee made some mistakes that just didn't end up affecting them too much. Jackson takes a shot deep, and this one had a chance to work. But again, good ball skills by these Tennessee Titan defensive backs. And that is a factor as well, is Tennessee doesn't do a ton well on defense. There are some things they do well, and that was a good play. This one was a back-breaking play for Baltimore, where what happened on this one is that it's going to be zone coverage, and they have a concept that's designed to beat cover 3, so this should work out. Also worth noting, just the situation in the game, Baltimore is currently up 8 with 2 minutes left in the third quarter. So, you know, they're in good shape here, and I think it's totally reasonable to suggest that this play was probably the biggest swing in the football game, where the way it works is that you have a receiver who runs deep over the middle. This causes the defensive back who's in charge of covering deep to Lamar Jackson's left, which is the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. He runs over the middle. You have another receiver kind of run out, and hopefully he gets open. Lamar takes the snap. He runs the play action because they like play action, and for a good reason. They're good at it. And as you see, there's an opening right here. I mean, this play worked out the way it's designed. The safety now has to try and come in and make this play. And if Jackson throws this one, basically throws it to where his receiver doesn't have to run further deep at all, kind of basically throw it at the 30-yard line, maybe just a little bit past the numbers towards the sideline, this is a huge completion, a first down, and you're in field goal range, and you can probably go up 2 scores and burn a little bit more clock, so you're up 2 scores in the fourth quarter. But this throw is high, he's leading his receiver, and it's also just not really well played there, quite frankly, by Hollywood Brown. He did not do a great job on that one of the jump ball. I don't think he stopped too early and misread it, so that's obviously not great either. But at the same time, that's I believe Devin Duvernay, not Hollywood Brown, but point still stands. Not a great job by him. Also wasn't a great throw, and that's a huge thing in a football game, and they can't let that happen when they play each other again, or the Ravens might lose the game. This one is another one. And also, sorry for spending a lot of this video talking about Baltimore and not Tennessee, but I just think Baltimore is, I think that's the more interesting way to talk about this, is talking about how the Ravens offense will attack the Titans defense, because the Titans defense basically just does what they do, I think, whereas it'll be interesting sort of to see the other way around. But yeah, what's happening on this play is it's man coverage. Mark Andrews is running a deep route over the middle, and so for Lamar Jackson, that's a good route against his coverage. It's man, once it gets past the middle, since there is a robber concept, so multiple Tennessee safeties are going to be over the middle of the field, but once Andrews gets over, he could get open, and spoiler alert, he's going to get open, so Lamar is going to make that throw. Watch, Lamar takes the snap, he looks over, Andrews is open, and he just overthrows him. And, you know, that's just a throw that Lamar Jackson needs to be better at. And he had a bad day. Statistically, he had a bad day as well. If you look at his completion percentage for that game, which I actually think completion percentage is a good way of looking at it, since it's not just going to be him, it's going to be his entire team, essentially, because how many passes were completed. Against Tennessee, it was 58.6% of his passes that were completed. Throughout the year of 2020, his completion percentage was 64.4%. So that's a pretty significant difference, 6%. And ever since that game, he's been completing 67% of his passes. Actually, fun fact, I had to do that myself. He's had exactly 67 completions on 100 attempts. So made my calculations a little bit easy on that one. And the reason why I'm bringing up those numbers is that, quite frankly, you can't tell me that reason is because Titans played defense well. Now, they had their moments. I'll talk about a good play I like from them in a second. But at the same time, there were definitely guys open, and Baltimore just didn't play their typical good football, I think. That's just my opinion. But yeah, let's watch this play, for example. I think this is a great example of kind of going back to one of my earlier points. When Tennessee knows that you're going to throw the football, they're way better. Their real issue, I think, all season has kind of been getting out of position. I feel like play actions have just killed them. Quite frankly, if the Tennessee defense had to play the Tennessee offense, they would just be a complete mess, because that seems like a matchup nightmare. And a play like this, though, is a great example of showing what they can do if they have an idea of what's going on. I'm highlighting that right there, what the left guard is going up against here. Why? Because it's Rashaan Evans that he's going up against. That's the linebacker in that area. It's a one-on-one matchup. And I find that interesting. You know, you don't see this too often, where you get a linebacker to go down and basically play defensive tackle, give him a one-on-one matchup against the guard. And the reason they're doing this is because he's actually good at rushing the passer. So this is something Tennessee just does from time to time. Not just have him blitz, but we'll have linebackers just line up and rush the passer just straight up. And as you see, he's going to win this matchup immediately, and he completely disrupts this play. Lamar had to get rid of it in a hurry, and that's just a huge play. So if they know that a pass is coming, they're in really good shape, I think. Although, in fairness, Baltimore can play better. I shouldn't say really good, but that's what Tennessee should want, is they should want basically Baltimore to go away from their strength, even if it is their own weakness. Baltimore will still be able to do some plays like this. This is just one that is a classic Tennessee Titans defense. It's a 3rd down and 13 right here, and they're playing a deep cover 3 zone. This is entirely just trying to not give up the first down, which is kind of a bold move. When the Ravens have Justin Tucker and they're just outside of field goal range, Baltimore could have easily just, thrown a quick screen pass and gotten in field goal range. But instead, Tennessee is going to say, you know what, we'll give you the 3. We don't want to give up 7. But Jackson takes the snap. Andrews is going to get a little bit open, actually pretty open, and Lamar is able to make the throw, and they get the ball all the way inside the 15. So they can still do that, and that's kind of the issue is, yes, Baltimore didn't have a great day throwing the ball. They still had some really good plays as well, and they were kind of inconsistent, might be the best way of saying it. I think they'll be better when they play in the playoffs. This one's another good example where it's going to be zone coverage, and that's kind of the other thing is, yes, on one hand, it is an advantage for Tennessee to know what they're doing. If they know that this is going to be a passing play, that is a huge advantage for them. But if they don't know, it's a huge disadvantage when Baltimore decides to throw it. And I do think we're going to see more passing plays from Lamar Jackson in this one. What's happening on this play is Hollywood Brown runs, again, it's similar to a play I've showed earlier. He runs a deep route, gets the defensive back in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, further towards the middle. Mark Andrews then tries to run towards the sideline and get open. Jackson takes the snap. He runs another play action because that's what he does. You look over, and Andrews, who's in the yellow circle, he's clearly about to get open. The defensive back has completely abandoned his assignment right here, which I understand why, but again, this is what you have to attack. Tennessee sometimes struggles at staying in their assignment or knowing exactly when to not stay in their assignment. Take advantage of that if you're Baltimore. And this is something that I know this was week 11. I think Baltimore has gotten better. I don't think Tennessee has gotten that much better at this. So this is something you should try to attack again. Lamar is going to make this throw. Andrews is able to make the grab. They get a touchdown. That's another good play. So it's not like they were a complete mess by any means. I kind of just wanted to show how much went wrong, and this game still went to overtime. And part of it is we got to talk about the other side of the ball as well, which I promised I will get into in a later video. So that's the thing, is we all knew that the Ravens offense is going to outplay the Tennessee Titans defense. The question is really by how much, and will they be able to outplay the Titans defense more than the Titans offense will be able to outplay the Ravens defense. What I'm going to do for these videos is not give my prediction on who wins until I make the second one, but what I am going to do is make my prediction on how much I think the offense will score. So for Baltimore, I think there were 9 possessions last game. One of those was in overtime. I'll say there's still 9 possessions, and I'll say Baltimore scores 31 points, which is pretty high. It's actually, if you did that every game, you'd lead the league in scoring. So I think that's pretty high. It's nothing crazy, though. It would just be a little bit better than the Packers, who currently lead the league in scoring. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say 31 points in a lower possession, but not completely low possession game. Will that be enough to win? I guess you'll have to stay tuned and watch my next video. It should come out later this week. Stay on the lookout for that. And also, I'm going to make my predictions on Wednesday at 9 on the podcast. So stay on the lookout for that as well. Thanks for watching this incredibly long video. This one was longer than most of mine are going to be, but I think that there's a lot to talk about with these playoff previews, so they might be a little bit longer. Hope you guys don't mind. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.